I'm a McDonald's Coke girly. Like a McDonald's Coke and a large fry is the best car snack that anyone could ever ask for.
A French fry.
A large French fry and a crispy McDonald's Coke. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Welcome back.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Pepsi.
Bridget, are you having a stroke by chance?
Sponsored by.
Oh, man. Your car's not in the same spot.
No.
You're calling clients about their lessons.
My lesson was moved.
It was moved.
Yeah, it's the government.
Yeah.
They're interfering.
It's birds.
The birds aren't real.
The birds.
The birds aren't real.
They're not real. They were looking at me weird today.
The dogs aren't real.
Oh my gosh, look.
Oh.
Falling asleep.
These teddy bears over here.
Okay. What's going on? What are we talking about today?
Yeah, Brigitte.
Agenda?
So today we discussed or introduced one of our topics, and that would be, why is my dog doing that?
All right.
And it will be an in-depth discussion about why your dog is doing that.
Is doing that. Or if
Why is
maybe
your
you
dog-
should stop overthinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually matter why.
There are clients that come in and they're like, my dog's doing this. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the issue? Yes.
But
You'll really overthink it.
I want to start off strong because I don't know who needs to hear this. But I'm looking at you, whoever it is. Your dog is not eating their own poop or other dogs' poop because they have a nutritional deficiency.
No, that's a myth.
Yes. If they are on a healthy diet and they're not underweight, your dog is not seeking out their poop because they're like, I'm so weak. They're eating poop because they like the taste.
And also, like, if poop is coming out of something, it's because you took all of the nutrients out of it.
Right.
Yes.
So what more could they be looking to get?
Exactly.
Especially if it's their own poop.
Yeah.
Their body decided we don't need any of that. So it definitely isn't driving them to say, I'm just kidding, actually.
Yeah.
Let's get that
Let me
back.
just try again, make sure.
I would say it's very common, like 9 out of 10 clients that experience poop eating with their dogs say that to me. They're like, well, I started them on vitamins. I gave them more food. But really, it's your dog likes the taste, and it's become a habit. I have a world-class poop eater, a dog that I've really struggled with poop eating, and she loves that. Like fresh out of the oven. She's
Soft
cooking.
serve.
Yes.
Soft serve.
And it infuriated me. It was very disgusting and very gross, and it would get her sick. So we handled it through utilizing like a vitamin that makes their poop taste bad. Your poop should already taste bad, but this vitamin makes it taste like bitter, and that really helped.
Yeah.
And then like watching her in the yard and obviously correcting her in 100 anytime I saw her eating poop
Yep.
or sniffing around. But the vitamin gave us an extra level of protection. If I can't always monitor her in the backyard.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes your dogs just do gross things because they're gross creatures.
yes. And they're not human. And some people are so horrified by like the poop eating and they're like, I have to tell you something. And you're like,
Yeah. Some people are really embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
You're like, what? What's wrong? And you're gonna like, you're just on the edge of your seat and they're like, my dog eats his own poop.
And I'm like, mine too.
Yep. It is very common.
Yeah.
When they're smacking their lips and you're outside and you catch
it's like
them.
And you
thick
know it.
And you could,
And they're like, and you're like, I know what you were doing out there.
so gross.
So he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I wasn't eating anything. And then you smell their breath.
Oh, yeah.
That's the
Or
worst.
When they throw up their poop.
Their poop
No.
they just ate. Yeah.
No. You just ruined her sody pop.
Being dog trainers, you get desensitized to poop and
Yes.
throw
It's
up. and-
true. It's really all the
everything.
same at that point. What are other gross behaviors that don't necessarily have any reason behind them? Rolling and stuff?
Yes.
There's probably some biological reason.
Yeah.
The grand scheme of things, though, if you don't want them to do it, you can easily teach them not to do it. You don't have to overthink it.
Yes. Yeah.
Snoop is
Yeah.
The goose poop.
I
The goose
think,
poop's the
yeah.
biggest thing for Sully.
Snoop is so gross.
My
with
dogs
that.
love, like, there's this foul smelling thing on my dogs, and I couldn't figure out what it was for like months.
Was it
and
deer
months.
piss? Deer
No.
piss smells so bad.
I don't think deer can get into my yard. So what I found out is it's worms that come out of the ground.
I'm sorry.
What? There's like when it rains, the worms are like, and they come out of the ground, and then they dry and they die. And then my dogs like have a field day rolling on these, and it's a very
So it's just
distinct
dried
smell.
earthworm.
Yes, because for months and months I was like, why do my dogs smell like absolute ass right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
And then I
The
checked
crusty
them. I
worm
went
smell.
over, and there's like this like worm looking thing. So I'm pretty sure it was either worm or an owl pellet or something like that.
Yeah.
Gross.
But dogs are just disgusting, and like
Yeah.
people are also horrified. Like when dogs like, have you ever had a client be like, "Why does he smell the other dog's butt?"
Yes.
They're like, "Stop! I don't
Yeah.
like that."
or like
Or
they're
mounting.
like
too,
if
is
they
another
like
one.
smell like their penis or something underneath the dog,
Yeah.
and they like are right up in there, and
Yeah,
they're
they
always
go
like,
under the hood.
"Stop, stop." Yeah. And I'm like, that's literally what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So them
Just like
smelling
humans
like
shaking
another dog's
hands.
rear end or like genitals is like very normal, and you shouldn't discourage that.
Yeah.
Because if you discourage that, you're going to make your dog resort to sniffing and interacting in a completely unnatural way that is not going to be perceived well to the other dog.
Forcing a dog to try to communicate like a person is just so unnatural and
No.
and impossible.
Absolutely
You have
not.
to let them communicate like a dog. It's the only way the other dog is going to receive it properly, and the only way the dog is going to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Dogs' scent is supposed to be like 20 million times more strong than a human's, and they can smell things like, this is what I was told, or what research I've done on it, but like just like people can tell colors, like, oh, the color of that bird is red. Dogs kind of have that same kind of information through smell, and it's not necessarily that they can determine a color, but it's the same kind of reception and like information, and they can get like a lot more notes out of it. And it's so natural to smell each other's rear ends and like get information. I don't know what information, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's like, can you
Probably
like
hormones and
like
pheromones
hierarchy,
Yep.
like sometimes.
Yeah, like
Definitely the
age and all that kind of stuff. No, like I had a acquaintance who had a bloodhound that she would do like search and rescue with. And the way she described it to me too is she was like, the way that like you would walk in someone's house and smell, oh, they're making a soup, and you can like smell and know that it's a soup. She's like, a dog would be like, I smell carrots, celery, potatoes, basil, like can smell like all of
The
those
individual
little
things.
individual things and pinpoint all of them, which is pretty wild.
It is. So a sense of smell is really important, and like we should allow our dogs to smell one another, obviously appropriately, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. In terms of the social as well, kind of, as both like mounting and stuff too. Like if the dog has a problem with it, then the dog should be the one to communicate that. That is the whole process of the communication, and then go from there on how each dog responds to it. Right. There are appropriate and inappropriate ways on how to deal with that stuff, but it is natural, and so it's something that you kind of again want to let the dogs kind of deal with it themselves. Yeah. What else?
What are other common things people ask
okay.
about?
So I'll give you guys some scenarios, and you tell me
Okay.
why is my male dog peeing in my house and marking everywhere?
Because he wants to.
Because he's built a routine being able to.
Yeah.
But it's not his full bladder, and it's just a little bit of pee. Why is he doing that?
Because it's a naturally like driven thing to leave your scent and mark territory and all that kind of stuff. So if you have a dog, and female dogs will do it too. It's a little bit less common, but they'll still do it. Marking is more a nuisance behavior than like a potty training problem. So you can correct for it.
Yeah.
And then if you can't supervise it, you just need to crate them.
Yeah, and that's
Some people have good luck with belly bands, things like that. But
belly bands. Like a lot of people will ask that, though. They're very concerned that it's tied to potty training. Be like, well, I just took him out and he comes in and he marks a little bit. And it really is just a dog's way of spreading their scent around the house, especially if you have like multiple dogs or multiple male dogs, even females. Like will do
Yep.
that to one another.
And it also has typically very little to do with whether they're intact or not.
yes, yeah,
Yes, could an intact male maybe have a little bit more of a biological drive to do it? Yes, but that's not guaranteed, and it doesn't mean it's like impossible. Like Snoop doesn't mark inside.
Yeah.
He
Sully,
doesn't.
Sully never has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still intact. So like it doesn't mean has he tried? Yes. He tried. He's never done it in my home. He's tried once here at the facility. I think had just turned like 2 or something, and he like walked into the main floor and then lifted his leg right on like the middle
Pole.
pole
Sully
thing
has
that a
done
lot
that
of
before as
dogs
well.
have peed
Yep,
on.
yep.
And I was able to correct him for it that first time he did it, and then he
got
hasn't.
humbled.
Yes, he's never done. He was strutting his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
He
then
knew what he was calling.
yeah, and then he never did it again. So you're not just like shit out of luck if you have an intact male. Same with like, and that's told to people a lot is it's like, well, you have to neuter your dog or else
Yeah.
they're going to pee on everything. They're going to
Or
hump everything.
they're
they're
not
going
be
be
to
as well
aggressive.
trained.
they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be, all these things.
It's
Not
but
true.
A lot of ridiculous information. Like people think that a neuter will completely alter their dog's behavior, and while it may, like,
I've only
take
ever
the
seen it
edge,
alter it in
Yeah.
the worst, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It could either make them more nervous, especially if you do like pediatric neuter or neutering too young.
Yeah.
And people can't accept that like dogs need those hormones. And
Yes. Health wise, a pediatric neuter is terrible.
yes,
It's
yeah.
really not good for your dog to neuter them before they're full grown.
Yes.
Because their bone density doesn't develop, their joint issues don't form together, but like it's just not not great. There's higher rates of cancer
Yes.
in
Yeah.
dogs that get neutered really young.
Yeah.
Is that similar for females getting spayed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Females
just a
can
little
have
more
like
and stuff.
pyrometra, which is like buildup of lining in their uterus, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that can cause like cysts and things to form.
Like an infection.
So-
So like with females, it's
You have to breed.
there's more of a
or-
time frame. So like with male dogs, like you could never neuter them.
Yeah.
And really the only risk you're creating is like testicular cancer because of obviously they have testicles.
Right.
But with female dogs, if you leave them intact and then you never breed them, they don't shed their uterine lining the way that humans do. So what it does is like every time they don't have a litter, it just like compounds on each other, and then it can get inflamed and get an infection and all that kind of stuff. So you generally, like if you have a female, they'll usually say like 1 to 2 heat cycles,
Yeah.
and then you'll want to spay them. So they've developed, and they're good to go, and they got everything they needed out of it.
Yeah.
And then you want to spay them after that, so you don't have any of those other risks.
Gotcha.
And like good, like really well-known breeders will give you a spay contract. Like,
Yeah.
I was on a spay contract with one of my dogs, and it said like 18 to 24 months. And that's when I did spay her. It was like about her 2-year mark. And I felt like I was really glad that I had waited for her to fully develop and grow because she was like minuscule and tiny.
She was, yeah.
And that helped her grow up a little bit. And like she went through like a fear period prior to her spay. And I'm not saying that that was directly linked, but around the time of her heat cycle, she was like a different dog, like more nervous and anxious and pooping in the house a little bit more, like right in front of me, and it was just odd behaviors. So
Yeah, when they're in heat, they can behave weird.
yes,
Every dog is like very different with
yes,
that, but
What about people that say my dog is, pooping the house out of spite? Because I leave
would
the
say-
house, or
I hate to break it to you guys. They aren't being spiteful. You're just not managing them properly.
yeah, there was. You hear that a lot, especially on the
it's a good
internet. They're
one.
like, the dog was mad at me because I left, so they pooped and destroyed my things. And it's like, dogs don't. I'm sorry, but like, I personally don't believe that dogs have the capability to be mad. like
No.
angry at their
No,
owners or
like a
resentful.
premeditated anger
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Like they don't
Or like
really
getting in
have
the trash or something. People
Yeah,
be
like,
like,
they don't
well,
have
you
the
know.
capability
Yeah.
to be like, I'm gonna go poop on his pillows specifically because he yelled at me earlier today.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I don't think they have the cognitive ability to do that.
No, and like dogs can feel emotions, but it is not as widely ranged as human or as like complex as human emotions. And they can feel fear and sadness, but they're again, it's not premeditated, and they're not like, oh my god, I'm thinking about my past life and I'm so traumatized, I'm gonna poop on the floor.
Yeah, no.
And then people are like, well, it was because he had a flashback to Vietnam, and
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah. I think it's just more patterns that are set, you know.
Yes.
Again, it's like with the trash can too. Like I've heard people say like, well, like they got mad and so they like knocked over the trash can and threw it all over the house, and it's like, no, they just knew you were gone and there were no consequences of getting in the trash.
They had to
So,
entertain
they
themselves.
had a field day.
Could be
So-
completely uncorrelated, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, like, dogs will poop or pee when you're gone or things like that because they feel a little bit more anxious that you're not available to them. So sometimes it can be associated with just an anxious behavior, and it's not because they're mad, but we have to look at like, how can we start to fix that? How can we start to make sure a potty routine is really good before we go anywhere?
Yep.
How can we make sure that we're working on separation anxiety?
It
Yeah.
could be I mean, I will see that sometimes it could be an attention thing. Like your dog goes and grabs like I know specifically in my case, like Cash, a behavior that he does that is very much for attention is he'll go into our bedroom and he'll grab my pillow off the bed and he'll carry it into the living room.
Yeah.
And like, because he knows, I go, Cash, what are you doing? And it's like this fun game that we play. And like, I know he's doing it for attention and I'm giving him the attention
Right.
because I don't care. I think it is actually kind of cute.
Yep.
But like, he carries my pillow into the living room and his tail's up and he's like prancing and he's so proud of himself. And so like, do I know the reasoning behind that is because he probably did it one day because his whole life he's loved to carry around blankets and pillows and that's just like something he's always done. And so I'm sure one day, the first time he did it, he probably was just like a puppy who was excited and he grabbed something, and then because I was like, Cash, what are you doing, and like made a deal out of it,
Yeah.
he was like, oh, this is a fun way to like grab her attention when I'm feeling bored.
A lot of behaviors are strengthened through like reinforcement and what your
Yeah.
dog is getting out of it. So like counter surfing, for example, or getting into the trash is a completely self-reinforcing behavior where they're
Yeah.
getting something that they desire
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of that, and it's not just going to outgrow or it's not going to go away, and they're not doing it because they're mad at you.
Yeah, they don't think of it as like a consequence until there is something to like be laid into it. They just want what's in the trash, or they just want what's on the counter.
It's most delicious.
Oh,
to
yeah.
them.
yeah.
Well, and you think about it, it's kind of like, say, getting something out of the trash is a version of negative reinforcement in that they're having to like work through opposition to get what they ultimately want, you know, because
And it's entertaining.
generally getting into a trash can is difficult.
Yeah.
You know, you would make it difficult or
It's like
something.
enrichment.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like a negative reinforcement is truly one of the most strongest associations you could make with something and the hardest to break
Yeah.
with things. So, you know, I mean, I even had a client tell me that her dog pulled her down and like drug her a couple feet like to where there was like somebody left a whole pizza like in a bush somewhere. And so that was negative reinforcement. They had to push through opposition to get to the pizza, eat the pizza. And then they told me literally for like years afterwards,
The pizza
they
bush?
wanted to go to the pizza bush.
Yeah.
Even though they never found anything there ever again, every single day they had to go look.
Yep.
And so just that one moment of negative reinforcement was powerful enough for that dog to be like, we have to go see just in case.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a dog recently like that too. It was the same situation. There was a groundhog or a skunk or something in one bush one time, like right outside their house. And so now every time they walk out, he like shoots over to that bush still. So, well, he just went home. So I hope
crazy
it
how
fixed,
powerful that stuff can be.
But, yep.
What are some other ones? why does my dog do that? Whining.
Attention.
It's usually always
It's a
attention.
display of like their emotions, but it's attention. Like I just had a client that came in and he is a very young puppy and he was like, my puppy is whining in the crate. And when he whines, that means he has to go to the bathroom. So I let him out every single time. And then the dog is cycling through that. I whine, I get out of my crate. I whine, I scream, I throw a tantrum, I get what I want.
And maybe the first time it truly was because he had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But what happens is then he knows, oh, that worked. He creates the correlation in his head of I whined and he was doing it just out of like a desperate need of like I have to communicate something, but it just so happened that he got out of the crate because of it, and then they make that connection there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people worry that they're going to psychologically damage their dogs by allowing them to cry it out. But if we're going,
These aren't
into
babies.
yeah, like, and we have good routines and good habits, and we're on top, like ahead of their pottying, making sure we're on a good schedule, then we can easily put them into the crate and not have to worry. Oh, do they have to poop? Do they have to pee? And we can be more cognizant of adding crate time and being like, nope, this is your quiet time. And this is where you have to learn how to do nothing.
Yeah.
Essentially.
With puppies, like I tell my clients that I never want my dog or my puppies specifically to ever feel like they have to tell me anything.
Yeah.
Like I need to
get
just
ahead of
be meeting their needs like consistently throughout the day, because I don't want a dog who I have to respond to.
Yeah.
That's annoying. I don't
Right.
want to be waiting
And it
around
puts you
for
in the
my
back
dog.
seat, you
Yeah,
know?
to tell me they have to go to the bathroom to do. And I think that a lot of people, I don't know if it's because I think when we get adolescent dogs, like maybe they're like 8 to 12 months old that come in for training, that's like a super common request is like, I wish he would tell me when he has to go to the bathroom. And I don't know what drives that in people. I don't know if it's because it's out of laziness, like they don't want to have to keep track of the potty breaks. I don't know if it's because they're somehow told or convinced that that's how it should be, so they just like want that.
Yes.
But like I don't want my dogs having to tell me anything.
And the bells
Like
at the door, like
Ooh.
people
yeah.
are like, I taught my dog to ring the bell and I want my dog to ring the bell. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
just let him out. Just keep track of it. Just let him outside.
Well, and it's cute for a little bit, and then
And
until
it
they start
gets
taking advantage of
annoying,
it.
And then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I made the connection that bell ringing means I get to go outside and have an exciting time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
or
they're
just
not-
get attention in general, or
It's not necessarily, I don't know if dogs are making the connection, like I have to go to the bathroom, so I'm going to ring the bell and then I'll be let out.
yeah.
I don't, like, I'm sure in some cases, sure, but like for
Yeah.
the most part, it's just the excitement of going outside.
Yeah.
Stimulation, yeah.
Like even with Snoop with his potty training and his crate training, when I was letting him out to go to the bathroom overnight, I wasn't never wait until your dog wakes up and whines and then get up and take them out. I would set my alarm, and whether there was, I mean, I would set my alarm and he wouldn't even be awake.
Yeah.
I would have to wake him up, take him out, have him go to the bathroom, bring him back in and put him back in. And because I did that, now I have a 3-year-old Chihuahua who doesn't make a peep in his kennel. Like he won't make a sound because he's never been put in a position where he had to and it be valid. And then in turn, when he was young and maybe he would sporadically do it for attention, I could ignore it and not reinforce it at all. So he literally has no reason to at this point.
Yeah.
He's like, it doesn't give me any attention and I don't have to do it to let her know that I need something.
Yeah. I have a big whiner in their crate, and we struggled with that for a really long time, down to like when she was like 2 years old. Like even still to this day, if I go somewhere new and I'm going to the vet, she'll be whining and vocalizing, but it still doesn't accomplish anything. And we crate her every day, and it doesn't deter me from crating her if she whines or gets restless. It's just not going to yield in what she's looking for. So I wish she was didn't make a peep, but
Yeah. Some dogs are just different.
vocal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you also, is it Sunday?
Pip.
Pip? Okay. So I was going to say, like, I everyone's all their personalities are
Yes.
different.
Yep.
You know, that's a big piece of it too.
And Sunday
But-
used to be a very big whiner, and like still she'll do it every now and then, but like I feel like I went to a training night one time and like said something about her whining and like how on top of her I was getting, and I was like almost doing too much for her whining, and that was making her whining worse. So I think like backing off a little bit and like having clear expectations. Like I was trying to hold her on accountable for a bed stay or a down stay. And then I'd go upstairs and take a phone call. And then I have no way to reinforce. So when I caught her off of the bed, I'd give her the correction. And that was leading to her being really confused. So we just like opted for one, a bark collar because she was vocalizing and howling.
Yeah.
And that in turn really helped the whining as well. And then when I was able and I was watching her, we would do the downstay and kind of settle the state of mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. Maybe it was just maturity, but we don't really deal with that anymore.
Nice.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I was like, Cash, he drools in his kennel really bad.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I mean, like, he's always, I mean, not always. When he was a puppy, he was anxious in his kennel. He kind of grew out of it and was fine. And then for whatever reason, around like 4 years old, he was super anxious in his kennel, and now he's almost 12.
Yeah.
But like, I can't leave him out when I'm gone.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's super dangerous for him because he eats everything.
Yeah.
He will open my refrigerator. He'll get in my freezer. He'll open the cupboards. So it's just not feasible to leave him out. And he would panic even more if he was left out. Like he
Yeah.
just has like a disposition of being more anxious. And so like he'll drool when he's in his kennel, but like I don't have any other option for
Right.
him, you know, and
Yeah.
it's not going to kill him. So
I find that very similar to the same thing as like when your dog's shaking on a bed or something, on bed stay
Yeah.
or in a downstay or something. It's because like, well, if they weren't in that, they'd be pacing and they'd be panting. They'd be doing all these things.
exactly.
And you're making
So
them
it's-
confront their anxiety.
Yeah. So it's just them dealing with it. I know a lot of people get really worried about that with like the shaking
Yeah.
and that they're like scared. And it's like, well, they probably are anxious, but it's not because I'm making them do it. It's they're just anxious generally and they're just addressing it.
We're
like you're
seeing
saying.
it manifest
Yes.
differently than you're
Right,
used to.
right.
Like I have clients with a cattle dog that after a few sessions, when we really dealt with the explosive, like jumping and lunging and barking, like anywhere they took him, that was like overstimulating. That's what he was doing the whole time, just launching himself everywhere. And then once we addressed that and started to like hone him in a little bit, now he has more of like a nervous demeanor. And I, you know, always am quick to address with people that like you're seeing the raw emotion that was driving
Yes.
the erratic behavior that used to happen. You know, you're just seeing it in a completely different way because we removed some options for how he was allowed to cope with it, essentially.
Exactly.
We always like say like you can't train out, like you can't correct your dog into not feeling anxious. You can't give them like really firm corrections and expect them not to be anxious. We're looking at like, are you able to hold the command I'm asking you to hold? And then through routine and helping your dog realize that nothing scary has happened, that in turn works on the anxiety. But you can't correct your dog into feeling something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No. And like, there's nothing I don't have anything that I care to do or could do with Cash and his drooling in the kennel. Like he's not barking. He doesn't whine.
Yeah.
He makes no noises. He just pants and drools.
Yeah.
And like for short periods during it. Like it's not like it's the whole time in there. But I just I could overthink that and be like, why is he doing this?
Yeah.
Why at 4 years old did he all of a sudden decide to be so anxious in the crate? Like I'll never know.
When you
I'll never know.
like tie too much emotion into how your dog is feeling and then come up with scenarios of like why they're doing it because they hate you or because they're gonna have like a stroke
They're
or
so
something.
upset. Like I don't feel
Yeah.
guilty when I have to leave
Yeah.
and put him in the kennel. Like he will be fine. Nothing terrible is going to
Yes,
happen to
he's
him.
just gonna like some dogs' natural response, like humans deal with anxiety in a different way, dogs deal with anxiety in a different way, and an anxious response can just be salivate
Yeah.
and have more drool. And we just dealt with a board and train that went home and had a ton of drool, and that dog had like literally 2 cups, and it was very intense. And I completely empathize with the owners, like coming home and finding their dog soaking wet was very upsetting.
Yeah.
But like something that helped in the moment was like adding some kind of blanket and correcting him if he ate the blanket.
Yeah.
And then that at least helped absorb some of the drool.
Yeah.
So she could feel a little bit better. But for a while, like she was very upset that he was so upset. And then we stopped the drooling for in our sessions, and then he began to like just kind of quiver a little bit.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I don't like that either. And it's like, well, your dog's never going to like the crate. And we have to accept that there's going to be things our dogs don't like, but are necessary for their health and safety.
Yep.
And creating your dog, rather than coming home and finding that they've gotten into a medication, they've choked themselves with a chip bag.
Yeah.
They've destroyed your things. You're an anxious mess when you leave your house because you don't know what you're going to come home to. That's not fair.
Right.
And if I have to deal with a little bit of drooling or whining or shaking in the crate rather than my things being destroyed, I'm sorry.
And your dog being okay. You know, if they get in the wrong thing, you know, that's
Oh yeah.
life threatening
worse
for the dog.
ways,
And then
yeah.
you're not even there to help the dog, you know? So, yeah, I am on the same side. I
And
just,
there's
I
there's
don't
not
get
a quick fix for anxiety, and it's just like
Yeah.
we get majority of our cases are very, very anxious dogs that act either out of fear or aggressive in their fear. So it's just like working through things and being patient.
Yeah. You should only worry about the things you can directly control and affect.
Yeah.
And how your dog feels emotionally at every moment of the day is not one of those things.
Right.
Like you can
Well, and that's what you were saying with like, I don't know why he was scared at 4 years old.
Yeah,
And you'll never
I
find
have
out.
no
It's
idea.
because it doesn't matter.
I can't
You're
change
never going to know. So why do you hang on to that? You know,
yeah,
like,
I'm never gonna know why
Yeah.
all of a sudden at
because
4
it doesn't matter.
he decided, that he was like, actually, fuck this crate. I hate it. It's like I don't know. So
Right.
I got one. Why is my dog reactive? Why is my dog going ballistic when they see another dog? Because
there's a couple reasons.
There's a
Yeah.
couple of reasons.
Either you socialize them too much and in the wrong way, or they're freaked out. I'd say those are probably the main two. It's like either they're scared and they're reacting because they're scared, or
They're so excited.
are so excited and just want to be involved in FOMO and all that kind of stuff.
And they see another dog and they find value in the other dog rather than listening to you. So they become checked out from you. And they're like, I want to see that other dog. And reactivity can it's a weird thing where even if it's not out of aggression, we're like, okay, Fluffy, you can go see the other dog, because we have the tense leashes that can very quickly turn into a huge fight.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's fine until it's not.
It's the leash greeting for me. That's what gets me. I just I don't know. I think that's where a lot of the reactivity, a lot of people come to us as well and say, well, dogs in the house, or go to a friend's house, the dog, totally fine. But on a leash, I see a dog 50 yards away and they go ballistic.
And it's opposition reflex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're physically holding your dog back.
It's negative reinforcement.
And that's making them want that thing more. So people will try to manage that through oh, I'm going to put a harness on because he's choking himself. Or I'm just going to allow him to say hi to everybody.
Yeah.
This is what he wants. Or those people that come up and interrupt you on your walk and they're like, I'm sorry. My dog just really wants to say hi to your dog. And I'm like, no.
My dog doesn't.
I saw a video of a force-free trainer that was trying to make a point using semantics. And basically, it was about harnesses, and it was like there's so many balance trainers that will tell you that a harness will make or teach your dog how to pull, when really that's not true, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, none of us are saying that. All we're saying is that it's going to do nothing to prevent the pulling,
Right.
and if anything, them leaning into leash pressure and it being easy, comfortable, and effective will reinforce that behavior over time. I'm not saying that a harness is a magical thing that teaches them anything.
Right.
I'm saying that it's not going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
And if you want your dog to not pull on a leash, a harness is the worst choice that you could pick.
Yep.
I'm not against harnesses. I put Cash wears a harness, Snoop wears a harness, but that's because they have leash manners, and I don't have to use my leash anymore to enforce my expectations.
Yes. Yeah.
The harness is just simply there for Cash. It's there because he has a neck injury, and I don't want to risk ever putting anything on his neck or pressure there or whatever. So he wears a harness because of that. And then Snoop, I have him in a harness because I like to be able to quickly grab and pick him up in a moment if I need to, easily. But it's after they've already been trained that
And
I'm
they
okay
have
with using those.
Something that you're not relying on physical leash pressure to prevent them from pulling. Like
Yes.
Sunday wears a harness for scent work, and that's because we don't want to restrict her neck or have her feel like when she gets to the end of her leash that she's doing something wrong.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. So it's not that we think the harness is going to teach them how to pull necessarily. It's that
it gives you less control too.
way less control, and they can be dangerous if they're not fitted properly, and then they just be slipping out of them.
Out of it. Yeah.
I was at my in-laws the other day. Totally forgot about this. And
God.
they live near like a pond in like a condo area, and all of a sudden we look out because we hear all these geese screaming, and there's these two rogue pugs just like terrorizing the geese, and the one was like drowning in the lake and just like bobbing around. And so me and Tom go out there. I'm in no rush. I'm sorry, guys. I was like, this is chaos.
Especially
because
pugs.
this
Like-
lady is known around the neighborhood to just have no control over these dogs ever. Like the day prior,
it.
we saw her out for a walk, and they were like already about to slip out of their harnesses again and all this kind of stuff. So we go out there, and there's like probably 6 people out there now with these dogs. And Tom has like both of them like wrangled. So I come and I grab one, and I'm just holding it out in the air like this because they're all gross and wet.
Yep.
They're covered in poop, their own poop. And then we like carry them back over. All of this to say they slipped out of harnesses. But we like carry them back over. And I remember one of these nice neighbors, she had like brought out like dog treats to like lure them over with. And I'm literally carrying this dog that's ruining everyone's day. And she comes up with the treats, and she's like, I brought biscuits, and like goes to give the dog the treat. And instinctively I was like, he has not earned a biscuit.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No.
And then the owner finally shows up, and she's
Where was
like
she at?
in her house cleaning up all their poop because they
my
pooped all over her
gosh.
laundry room in her house. So she like tied them up outside with their harnesses on, and they escaped. So they finally get a hold of her, and she comes and she's trying to get their harnesses on. Meanwhile, another neighbor man, this was pure chaos, has his 2 large dogs on flexi leashes. They're dragging him over to us, and he's just letting his dogs come and like get right in the mix of everything. Everyone's tangled up. We're about to have a dog fight. I was like, I need to leave immediately.
Yeah.
I like handed a pug, and I was like, Tom, we have to go. We
Yeah.
just walked away.
Yep.
I was like, this is not my monkeys, not my circus. I need to get out of here ASAP.
And like, it's just ridiculous to me. Like I had group class the other day, and I was with like Mosley, and like she's on top of Mosley, and he did an excellent job. But clearly Mosley wears a muzzle,
Yeah.
bite-proof muzzle.
Yes.
And we had a whole line of dogs in downstays, and this woman, not once but twice, comes over with this out of control doodle on a harness, and she's just like, "Oh, I can't control him. Oh, oopsie."
Oh my
And it comes
gosh.
right over to Mosley, and like just like this close, and Mosley has a reaction, but you know, his owner really got on him for that, and it was a really difficult situation for him, and I don't blame him for that at all.
Yeah.
And then the dog is just beep bopping around to all of the other people, and I was like, you need to get your dog back. And she's like, I can't, he's just made a choice. And I was,
Oh my
He's just
God.
made a choice.
That
Feet bopping, and then like I heard her say that, and I was like, I'm not gonna argue with
Yeah.
you when
Yep.
I'm with my client.
That's when you just
Yeah.
have to turn away
And it just
and remember
ridiculous
that
to
you're
me.
on the clock.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm wearing someone's logo right now. I
Yes.
can't do that.
But if that were me with my personal dogs, like
oh, I would freak out.
Oh.
I'm sure she's a lovely person, but
no, she's not.
The funniest,
that is
the funniest
is
part
so annoying.
about this pug situation, God bless him, Tom. We're standing, he's like, his shirt got all wet. He had like goose poop on him. And so he's over there, and at one point the owner was like, well, I guess the neighborhood was due for an adventure. And Tom goes, I mean, not really. And everyone just kind
not
of
quite.
paused and like looked at him.
Think-
I was like, this is not the adventure that I know you're just embarrassed and you're like
Yeah.
trying to like make light of the situation, but you should be apologizing.
Yeah.
People that think it's like a funny, goofy, silly goose time
Yeah.
to like have your dogs be out of control.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm not
No.
trying to like be that patrolman.
First of all, a goose would be able to whoop a pug's ass.
I know.
So
I was
she's,
like, I'm
she's lucky that the
She's
geese
lucky.
didn't
and
turn
they didn't
around.
drown in the lake. Like
Yeah.
dogs drown all the time.
yeah, and
Especially
pugs
a pug.
especially.
Yeah, they can't breathe
He's
even
just
on land.
bobbing like a fishing lure out there. I'm like, no, and I ultimately like I get accidents happen. Like accidents happen, mistakes happen. I'm not saying that people have to be perfect with their management of their dogs all the time.
But when it's a pattern.
But when it's a pattern
Yeah.
and when it's like you don't see how it affects everybody else around you or all of that kind of stuff, it's just inconsiderate at that point. And I think the biggest, I guess, my biggest thought when we talked about this topic initially was, why is my dog doing those things? Ultimately, everything can be traced back to because you allow it.
yes. Yeah.
Like literally everything. Yes, it could be something that is genetic or something that you can't really change about them. So I would say like it's not, they don't feel a certain emotion because you allow them to feel that emotion. That's not really what I'm getting at. I'm getting at like behaviors. So like
Yeah.
the emotion that drives a behavior, that behavior happens because you allow it to happen.
Yes.
Yep.
Like
And
your dog
continue to
slips out
happen.
of their harnesses because you allow it to happen.
Right.
Your
Because
dog's
you don't
barking and
choose to put
pulling.
them in equipment
Yeah.
that is safer and more secure.
Yep.
Your dog's barking and pulling towards people, you allow it to happen.
Yep.
So it just is a matter of assessing your dog's behavior and how you interact with them
Right.
and realizing that all of that stuff really just comes back to foundationally you.
And allowing it to happen is something too, like in the sense of like the pulling, like you were just saying, is that it's something where, yes, you might not be allowing it to happen in the sense that like you have a Great Dane that's just yanking you down, but it's the fact of allowing it to happen in the sense that you're not doing anything about it to address the issue.
allowing
You know?
mistakes to repeat and allowing like you're spinning your wheels if you keep dealing with the same problem but you're not doing anything to change it. It's like
The literal, isn't it like the definition of
Definition of-
insanity is
Yeah.
to do the same thing over and over
And
and,
I get
expect
that,
different
like,
results?
there's so much information out in the internet that you could Google like why is my dog reactive, and then there'll people like never suppress this behavior,
Right.
Yeah.
never use any adverse of, and then there are people that are like nail your dog anytime they look at another dog.
Yeah. It's
So
like,
it can be very
there are two
confusing.
extremes.
And like we say it all the time, like you have to find a trainer that you like has really good testimonials and that like has their, you could see their work.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
see what they deal with.
Yeah. But yeah, like even like you were saying, Seamus, it's not that like your dog has to be perfect right out the gate, but like your dog, once they show you who they are, it's your job then to make sure that you're taking the steps necessary to manage the behavior until you're able to address it
Yeah.
appropriately.
Well, because and also kind of what this whole kind of topic is coming back to as well is that the dogs, they don't know that it's a mistake until you tell them it's a mistake.
They don't have a moral compass.
Right. Jumping is not seen as like a dangerous or an annoying thing.
It's reinforcing.
Right. Exactly. So it's like until you tell them, hey, I want you to stop this. Right. Again, there's no explanation needed. It's I want you to stop this because whatever, the dog needs to know that.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise it's gonna keep happening.
Yeah, they have no moral compass. Like
Yeah.
they don't look at jumping on grandma as rude.
Right.
Behavior is just behavior, and they can't know that it's right from wrong unless you attach either a positive or a negative to that thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So-
Just because they can do it to mom and dad doesn't mean they can do it, you know, to grandma and the baby and all these things. Yeah. So reflect on yourself if you are having issues.
What are you allowing? What are you? Who's walking who?
Yeah. Who's walking who?
I hate when men say that to me and my
Who's
dogs.
walking
Oh my God. Especially
who?
when the dog's walking perfectly.
Yeah. I had that happen to me. My dogs are all on a heel, and this old man was like,
I know.
"Who's walking who here?" And I was like, "Haha."
And we're clearly all walking together, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. No, I was walking Cujo once, that big Presa Canario.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in like a perfect heel. We're just strolling. And one of those guys, "Oh man, you got your hands full there." Do I? I don't know. He seems fine.
Yeah.
Like, goodness gracious.
Oh, people
But
are
yeah,
funny.
if your dog is doing something, it's because you're letting them do it.
Yeah.
Either you're not addressing the behavior as it needs to be addressed, or you're not putting management in place to avoid the behavior happening until you're able to address it.
Yep.
Either way, I'm
Exactly.
sorry. It's your fault.
And it's like, stop feeling guilty about correcting, because a lot of clients will be like, "But I feel so sad." Just like, you can't have it both ways. Like, you either allow the behavior or you stop the behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
And stopping the behavior is like very, very minuscule and can take like a week to get through jumping. Like, not even.
Yeah,
Right.
if
A week.
even.
Right.
Especially if you're like super
jumping
consistent.
being something that generally goes pretty quick.
Yes.
You know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know.
But
Well,
it
and if
still
you
can
think
take a
about it,
bit.
like especially people that have dogs from the time that they're puppies, that's why I really enjoy the way we're structuring our puppy program now. Like, you can literally avoid all of your problems
Yeah.
to a certain degree.
It's really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, like there's so many ways that you're able to negate those big issues happening.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
anywho, thanks for joining us today.
It was fun. It was a good topic.
If you have any questions about why your dog's doing it,
Yeah.
you know, drop
Any
it in
other
the
things?
comments and we'll try to answer that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Word.
All right. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.